XQC just unboxed the first ever Karambit knife in CSGO 2.
Oh my god!
And we got no time. Come with me. Now, I've been wanting to make something from CSGO for a long time, pretty much ever since I started making 3D props, and I think the time is now to start. I actually already printed something. This is the USPS. I want to do the Hyper Beast camo on this. So let me know in the comments below if we should do that or if we should do a different camo. Let me know. But today we have to do the Karambit. So let's get the bamboo printer prepped. And let's get it printing. Here we are at my computer and we gotta find our file. And obviously I already did the work and I found this file on Thingiverse. I guess there was a really good file that had some issues, so this guy went and cleaned it up. Velcro. I will have this file linked in the description if you want to print this yourself. But if you've never printed on Thingiverse before, you just hit download files. They download a zip drive. You just unzip it. You can see the license here. This was created by Velcro and it has the images. And then here are the files. And it is in 2 pieces. This is to make it the most clean print possible. It's going to be split right down the middle and then we will glue them together. So then we are in our Bamboo Studio slicer. And all we're going to do is we're going to add the files right here. Half A, boom, and that goes on. And then we're gonna go half B, boom, and that goes on. Now this should be a decent size. I am gonna bump the quality up here though. I normally print at 0.12. I'm gonna do 0.1 on this. Looks like there's no errors, so we're just gonna go hit preview and that will slice it for us. Looks like this is only gonna take like an hour to print. Let's hit print and we'll see you after it's done. Karambit's ready, so let's take it out. All right, it came out looking pretty good. There's definitely some areas that I want to clean up and just make this thing like really perfect. So we will hit this with probably a small layer of Bondo. Also, we'll just give it a little bit of strength because we don't want that blade to break. But overall, really, really nice. And let's see, they match up nice. The size is pretty good too. It's not, I mean, it's not a big knife, but it fits my 3 fingers how it's supposed to right there. Pretty good. So next step, let's Bondo it. First things first, we need to glue the 2 pieces together. And I use an epoxy glue. I've been trying out this Gorilla Glue, which is pretty good. And once it dries, it's very, very strong. But there is a little bit of an issue that I've found, and that is you really need to hold it in place for a while. It sets, but not as quickly as like I would really like. So if you have like some sort of like clamp, that would be perfect. For me, I actually just used, and I forgot to film this, I just used a little bit of my UV resin and just kind of like tack welded some little spots, hit it with the light, and then that basically held it in place, and that allowed the rest of the glue to cure. Then we got to just let that dry because we don't want to be like handling it and then have a piece just slightly shift, because there is some pretty fine details on the back of that, and we're going to get into it right now when we talk about Bondo, and that is our next step here. The print came out pretty dang clean, but it still is a print, so we need to hit it with some Bondo and clean it up. Also, there is a bit of a seam where the 2 parts come together, and Bondo is just perfect to fill that little seam and make it look perfect. So I ultimately spread the Bondo pretty much all over the surface, but I did work in sections, starting with the blade where I did a very, very light coat of Bondo just to fill in those little imperfections, and again for the seam. Then we did it on the handle, and the biggest part was the back of the handle. This is where there was a lot of like ridges for the grip and all of that stuff, and there was a big seam down the middle, so we needed to fill that really best we could, but I didn't want to lose all of that detail that was there. So there's a lot of like little lines, and so what I ended up doing is spreading the Bondo, filling them in, and then using, I have these little picks that I use working with clay, and basically I just scraped out all of those little lines, and it ended up working pretty good. It was a little bit tedious, but I do think it was worth it in the end because we got to retain all those details. Now, once that dries, it looks pretty cool, but we still need to sand it because Bondo by itself is a little bit rough. But it sands super well and very, very easy. So we give it a nice once over with sanding, and then it's time to prime it. And after priming, we do another layer of sanding.
Oh, my life.
Michael, what's wrong?
Everything is wrong, Dwight.
And then that looks like this, and it is super smooth, and I won't say flawless, but it's as close to flawless as we're gonna get here without spending a ungodly amount of time in making it perfect. So now it's time to get to the painting of the skin, which is really what makes this thing special. So I hit it with some black spray paint as a base, especially because we're going to be using metallic paint on here. After that was dry, then I went live, and you might have seen it, or you can go back and watch the live video if you want, but we're live on here on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Facebook, really wherever you want to watch, and come hang out with us sometime. We got the karambit, and I'm going to throw down just a layer of dark purple here. And this is like a really, really dark purple. It's basically black, but it's just going to help us give us a nice like basis to start from. It really doesn't show up all that well, but I do feel like having an acrylic base when we're going to be putting acrylic paints over it is pretty important. And so that's what we did. We did the black, then we did the purple, and then it was time to get into the metallics. And I did the metallics on this similar to how I do like dark matter. If you haven't seen our locust dark matter video, definitely check that out. Is a really good one. But I used a lot of those techniques on that large scale piece on this very small scale piece, but again, it's metallics. So I did a lot of like blending between blues and purples, and I even have this black pearl paint that I kind of threw in there as well to like darken them up but still just have that metallic sheen. And I think it looked really cool, and I was having a lot of fun with it. The biggest challenge that I ran into here was keeping things as smooth as possible and not making it like too lumpy, because we are dabbing things on the surface, but metallic paint doesn't really cover all that well. So like finding that balance between heavy-handed and smooth was really the trick here. So then once we felt pretty good about that, then I moved on to the handle, and I want this thing to be basically factory new. But when you're working with these types of props, having just straight up black, like maybe it would be in real life, doesn't always portray like as well as you would like. And I felt like adding a little bit of weathering, but not too much, would be really nice. So I'm not going to use any gilding wax or anything like that, but we are going to dry brush a little bit. And I used a dark gray with our dry brush and just worked on the edges of everything. And this basically just accentuates and brings out all of those little details and stuff without making it look like worn. So basically we're just adding in some highlights, and it really helps out the piece. Once I was done with that, I felt like maybe we had gone a little bit too far. And so I wanted to kind of tone it back a little bit. And so we did a black wash, and I use a black wash on a lot of things to help add grit. But in this case, since we're doing it on black, a black wash on black, it's really just going to kind of tone down those highlights that we just did. And I think it did a really good job. I think it just kind of helped tone back. And then once that black wash was dry, then I went back in with the gray and just touched up a few spots that I felt like kind of got lost after the black wash. But again, this is all about balance here. It's a very small piece, so there's not really a lot of like room for error, and there's a lot of like, you see everything, right? And so I really wanted to focus on those details. Then all that's left to do is the varnish. And on this one, it is super important because the metallic paint looks decent by itself, but it really, really shines when you put a gloss coat over it for a couple of reasons. The gloss coat evens out that surface even more, kind of fills in some of those lumps and stuff like that. And it just helps tremendously in just bringing out some of those like sparkles and stuff like that out of the paint,
that really make this stuff cool. And then on the handle, we were doing a matte finish because gloss on that would just look plasticky and probably not right. So then after all of that, we are left with this. I had way more fun with this piece than I really thought I was going to. Hopefully I can get a hold of XQC or somebody in his camp or whatever, his team, and get this sent to him, because I think that would be really cool. This was just a fun project. So if you guys would like to see more Counter-Strike stuff, please let me know in the comments what you would like to see. I personally love the Hyper Beast stuff. The artist who does that, Brock, is one of my all-time favorite artists, and I love his style. So I would love to do some of that stuff. So let me know if you guys think I should do that, and we will see you guys in the next one.